Hi, welcome to another edition of Socrates Explains Everything. My name is Socrates, and I like to explain things. We're here in Athens on Filipino Hill on a pretty darn hot day. Climate change. I don't know if it's real or not, but we should start working on global cooling. That's a different topic. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about, capitalism. I find that the world's problems are mostly based on, capitalism. And it's coming up short, basically. It doesn't really work mathematically. But the problem with capitalism is even when you try to talk about improving it, you run into this block because most people don't really even understand what capitalism is. Everyone assumes that the opposite of capitalism is somehow communism or socialism. And the problem is that communism and socialism are both political systems, where capitalism is an economic system. And the reality is, everyone's been a capitalist. Even barter is capitalism. The Soviets were capitalists. The Chinese are currently communist and capitalist. And one of the ways you can tell that the Soviet Union, for example, was a capitalist organization is, one, they used money. The ruble is capitalism, fiat currency, if you will. Trying to turn stuff into numbers is essentially the aspect of capitalism. But more importantly, the Soviet Union, they went bankrupt. Bankruptcy is a word that only applies to capitalism, in the same sense that the word drowning applies to being underwater. You really can't drown unless you're in water. And you can't go bankrupt unless you're a capitalist. So, yes, the political systems influence the economic system, but the reality is everything up to now has been capitalism. And one of the hardest things to imagine is something that you've never been able to see. It's a lot like the first flying fish trying to explain to other fish the idea of flying. I'm going to break free of the water and fly. And all the other fish can understand. We mean swim higher? Swim faster? No, he means swim deeper. No, I mean fly. Fly. And if you've never seen it, conceived of it, or had the opportunity to envision it, how can you understand it? And that's the truth with capitalism. Everything has been capitalism. Everything. And so the alternative is unknown. The alternative is a leap. It is a gigantic transformation. It isn't socialism. It's removing ourselves from fiat currency and using a different method of value. Because the main purpose of capitalism is to spread the rewards of effort. It's supposed to be to spread resources fairly. The main use of it now is essentially incentive. But we're incentivizing people to work by threats of starvation, which is a really bad way to get someone to work hard. They'll work just hard enough to keep from dying. So I think that we need to work on a new system that allows us to capture what's being uncaptured currently. Because if capitalism worked great, we wouldn't have any problems. There wouldn't be pollution. There's currently pollution because it's cheaper to throw it away and not recycle it or clean it. But it's not cheaper in the long run for the world, for the environment, for our health, because capitalism doesn't value this word value. Value is the difference between what you can sell a product minus what it cost you to make. It doesn't matter how you destroy the world behind you. You made a lot of money and you left a gaping pit of poison. That does not quantify value because you were destructive. You see what I'm saying? So we can't even work on the next system until we can at least acknowledge where we're trying to go. And again, everything is capitalism, and the alternative has never been done. And if you really don't believe me that capitalism doesn't work, the biggest flaw with capitalism mathematically is that it's based on growth. And growth is an exponential curve. It goes zoop. You can never follow an exponential curve for long, because this is the time, and this is essentially whatever your value in this gross domestic product or whatever it might be, debt. If you look at the world debt numbers, it's following an exponential curve, and we're already right about here. It's a real bad place to be. And that's why the boom-bust cycle. because you follow the exponential curve and you crash down, and you follow the curve and you crash down, and you're making a bigger exponential curve out of your crashes, and eventually when that big curve crashes, it's a horrific crash coming up. So I think that we, with technology, now have the ability to make a better system, a system that quantifies value better. Value is efficiency. One of the other problems with capitalism is that within society we have two things. We have technologically possible, technologically impossible. And capitalism breaks the technologically possible into two sections: profitable and unprofitable. So you have to be technologically possible and profitable for it to exist within our current world. The sad thing is, the technologically impossible, that's also profitable, is very popular. That's where you get all of the things that would be considered fake in its own way. Like religion, any version of scam, any version of something that because you pay money for it that doesn't do anything. Those are basically the technologically impossible. People that are offering anything that can't be done, but you get money. So that's capitalism making the impossible profitable, while at the same time the possible is unprofitable, and we don't do it. Like fixing the climate. We could do it. Technologically, we've already figured out how to do it. But capitalism does not allow it because there's no profit in it. And the only way that'll change is when the governments basically move in a socialist direction, and the people, between voting and complaining, have the, whatever you want to call it, that the government now can do what they keep claiming they don't want to do, which is spend money on the planet. I think it's a very, very strange system, because the reality is we're all going to die on this big old ball together. Yeah, I said it. It's a round Earth. And I think we have to come up with a better system. And again, changing the system is easier. The first thing is to understand what the system itself is, and that capitalism is an illogical system based on growth, and growth is impossible. I follow the stock market. It's not only that they want you to grow, they want you to have growth in your growth. If you grew at 5% this year, they want you to grow at 6, 7, 8% next year, and more and more and more. Even though they know it's impossible, they still insist that this is what you should do. Capitalism needs growth. If you remove growth from capitalism, then at least I'd be able to reconsider it, but I don't think the system works without growth. As soon as we don't have 2 quarters of growth, we call it a recession. A little more, it's a depression. It's an unstable system. The reality is stuff has value. Money has no value. Money is based on society. When society goes down, money goes down. Money has collapsed hundreds of times in hundreds of countries. It's already shown its weakness as a storage of value. It only works when everything's working together. But in any form of crisis, everything falls off. And there's really no reason for that. An economic crisis is because the numbers don't add up, and they can't add up. So it's not like I could do better. I couldn't run the economy better. It doesn't add up. Look at the debt. Debt is endlessly expanding. The only thing capitalism creates is debt. It doesn't create wealth. It creates debt. All these huge companies, they're hugely in debt. America's $22 trillion in debt. Richest country or the most indebted country? No. We can do better. People defend capitalism like it's a sports team or a parent. It's just an economic system. It's just the best way we've ever had to try to say what something is worth, and then to exchange that value between us. It's time for a better system. It's time to rethink about it. It's time we move forward, because it's not. We're essentially all doomed. Between the plastic and the climate, the economy can't handle it. More than that, technology is going to destroy capitalism itself. We're losing all the jobs. Car companies produce, is it 3 to 5 times as many cars with a third the employees? You look at pictures of a tuna factory back in the 1930s. Hundreds of people working there, producing some tuna. Now there's dozens of people producing hundreds of tuna, depleting all the tuna. And of course, if that company doesn't grow, they'll fail. No, we can do better. It's simple as that. Don't be married to a system as if it somehow means something. And again, the Americans aren't unique to be capitalists. Everyone's a capitalist. Everyone. When you trade, barter is capitalism. If pig is equal to 10 chickens, or a piece of gold, well, then a piece of gold is equal, goes back and forth. Half a piece of gold is, 5 chickens, It ends up being capitalism. I know it seems strange, but as I said, the Great Leap Forward with Mao, he was trying to pay back a debt to the Soviets. So you had communist China basically killing off people by starvation by mistake to try to pay back a debt, a financial debt, to communist Soviet Union. 2 communist countries working on a capitalist debt. How can they not be capitalist? Yeah, they have a different way of electing, if you like, their politicians. But once you're in whatever those places, how is it different? You don't responsible to the people in finger quotes as if our politicians are responsible? They get in office, they do what they want. It's the same thing. I don't see that much of a difference between them. But anyway, like I say, I don't care about the politics. I just look at economics. I do the stock market. I follow the finances of it. I don't, the mainstream media was less interesting to me than the financial media. The financial media, amongst other things, by law, they have to tell you the truth as best as they understand it. And I follow the Financial Times. We're headed towards probably a horrific crash. It's just the mathematics. Math doesn't care. 1 + 1 is 2. You can say it's 3 all you want, but math doesn't care. And the mathematics on capitalism, it adds up to the boom and the bust of the crash. And we're so far here. They've only been able to maintain the numbers by fudging them. Because again, they don't mean anything. When a company goes bankrupt, they just wipe out the debt. When they restructure the debt for a country, they just wipe out the debt. Eventually they're going to have to wipe out bunches of Greece's debt. Argentina, Venezuela, they just wipe out the debt because the numbers don't add up. But the truth is, people still live. After the crash, tomorrow the sun's going to rise. People are going to go fish in the ocean, going to pull fruit off the trees. The economy is less important than the reality, and the reality is life. Life is stuff. Stuff has value. Doing things has value. With technology, we've gotten rid of most of the low employees. Middle management is being destroyed right now. It's one of the reasons wages don't go up, is that middle management is just being decimated because there's less people to manage, so we don't need as many managers. Doctors are being replaced with technology. Lawyers, lawyers can be replaced with a very simple tool that basically goes through all the words and with a version of AI can do most of the lawyers' work. Lawyers used to rent out lecture halls and universities and fill it with hundreds and hundreds of, new lawyers, young lawyers, interns, etc. And they would go through exploration, they call it. They'd go through all these documents. And it would take them weeks and months, lots of money. Now, it takes a couple hours with a computer. So the lawyers are being decimated by capitalism and technology. There isn't a field that's going to not be decimated by capitalism and technology. Automatic driving is going to get rid of all the cars, all the drivers, all the truck drivers, all the train drivers, all the bus drivers. The shipping is going to become automated. There goes all your crews. The retail will be more and more automated. There goes millions upon millions of retail people. And those are the last jobs that people have left. Now in real terms, when I was a kid in the 70s, you could get $20, $25 an hour. You don't even make that now without the inflation. So, I don't know. Some people told me some of my videos are short, so I figured I'd blab on and on and on. And if you didn't watch till now, see, I was right about the short video. But it's nice and cool in the shade. So this has been Socrates going on and on about capitalism and why it really doesn't make so much sense. And if you still think it does, well, I guess I'll make more videos. Like, subscribe, comment. Don't like, don't subscribe, don't comment. Go out and buy stuff. It's hard to change it, I can't change it. Bill Gates can't change it. Even Bezos can't change it. He can buy it. He can't change it. Steve Jobs was one of the richest guys in the world too, and he couldn't buy a cure for pancreatic cancer because there is no cure for advanced pancreatic cancer. Don't be Steve Jobs. Be smart. Try to change the world. Take advantage of technology. This is Socrates. I'm going to go for my walk. Ooh, that must make a lot of noise. Huh?